Hello and welcome to the show that nobody asked for, but everyone in Newfoundland and Labrador desperately needs Newfoundland Tenant Rights 101, or as I like to call it, how not to get screwed over by your landlord, eh? Look, renting can be confusing. It's like trying to understand the plot of the shipping news after a few pints of India beer. You know something's happening, but you're not quite sure what, and everyone's speaking in a dialect you can barely understand. But fear not, my friend, because over the next however long it takes to explain this, we're going to untangle the baffling world of tenant rights in this province. Whether you're a seasoned renter or just dipping your toes into the housing market for the first time, knowing your rights is crucial to avoid getting soaked. We're talking about basic human needs here, like having heat that doesn't require sacrificing a goat to a furnace god and hot water that doesn't trickle out slower than a dial-up connection. And let's not forget about those pesky landlords who think they can just waltz into your flat like they own the place. Spoiler alert, they do, but that doesn't mean they can just barge in uninvited. So buckle up, grab a bag of Hawkins cheesies and a can of pineapple crush, because we're about to embark on a thrilling journey through the surprisingly complex and frankly quite dull world of Newfoundland and Labrador tenant rights. First up, let's talk about the lease agreement. Now, I know what you're thinking. John, this is about as exciting as watching paint dry on a saltbox house. And you know what? You're not wrong. But trust me on this one, because this seemingly boring document is your best friend, your confidant, your legal wingman in the wild world of renting. Think of it like this. The lease is basically a legally binding contract between you and your landlord, kind of like a prenuptial agreement for your living space. It outlines everything you need to know about your tenancy, from how much rent you'll be shelling out each month, spoiler alert, it's probably a lot, to what happens if your pet moose decides to use the living room as a scratching post. And believe me, you don't want to be caught off guard if your landlord decides to get all litigious on you. Next up, we're talking about your right to a safe and habitable home. Now, I'm not saying your place needs to look like it's straight out of a magazine, but it should at least meet the bare minimum standards of human decency. This means no leaky roofs, no infestations of creepy crawlies, unless you're into that sort of thing, and definitely no electrical wiring that sparks like a New Year's Eve fireworks display. Landlords in Newfoundland and Labrador are legally obligated to provide you with a space that's safe, clean, and fit for human habitation. Think of it this way. You wouldn't store your nan's famous Jigs dinner in a mold-infested shed, would you? So why on earth should you have to live in one? Remember, you're paying good money to live there, and that money should get you a place that doesn't make you fear for your life every time you turn on the lights. Now, let's talk about something near and dear to all of our hearts: privacy. Even if you're crammed into a tiny flat with roommates who double as amateur clog dancers, everyone deserves a little bit of privacy. And thankfully, the law in Newfoundland and Labrador is on your side. Landlords can't just barge into your place unannounced like they own the place. Oh, wait. But seriously, your landlord has to give you at least 24 hours notice before they can enter your humble abode. That means no surprise inspections, no unexpected drop-ins to borrow a cup of sugar, and definitely no impromptu viewings with potential renters while you're still in your pajamas. Basically, your landlord needs to treat your apartment like it's actually your home, not just their investment property. Chapter 4, Quiet Enjoyment. Shh, this isn't George Street on a Saturday night. Speaking of privacy, let's talk about your right to quiet enjoyment. Now, I'm not saying you need to live in a monastery, but you shouldn't have to endure endless noise complaints from your neighbours because your roommate practices his bagpipe skills at 3 in the morning. And let's be honest, nobody wants to live next to the Newfoundland and Labrador chapter of Spinal Tap. The good news is you have the right to enjoy your home without being subjected to excessive noise, obnoxious odours or other disturbances. So if your neighbours are throwing nightly raves or your landlord decides to start a jackhammering competition in the apartment above you, you have every right to complain and maybe invest in some noise-cancelling headphones. Chapter 5. Fair rent increases because nobody likes a greedy landlord. Now let's talk about everyone's least favourite topic, rent increases. We get it. The cost of living is going up faster than the price of a feed of cod these days. But just because landlords are legally allowed to increase the rent, it doesn't mean they can hit you with an astronomical increase that leaves you with nothing but pocket lint and the lingering scent of despair. The good news is, rent increases in Newfoundland and Labrador are regulated, which means your landlord can't just decide to double your rent on a whim. They have to follow specific guidelines, including giving you proper notice and keeping the increase within a reasonable limit. So, if your landlord tries to pull a fast one, channel your inner Newfoundlander and don't be afraid to stand up for your rights. Chapter 6. Requesting repairs, maintenance, not miracles. Let's face it, even the most well-maintained apartments are going to have the occasional hiccup. Maybe the faucet starts leaking like a politician's promise, or the oven decides to take an indefinite vacation. Whatever the issue, you have the right to request repairs from your landlord. Think of it like this. You wouldn't ignore a toothache, would you? Well, some of you might, but you know what I mean. Landlords are legally obligated to make necessary repairs to keep your rental unit in a safe and habitable condition. So don't be shy about reporting any problems, no matter how small they might seem. After all, that leaky faucet isn't going to fix itself, and the last thing you want is a flood that turns your apartment into a miniature version of the Atlantic Ocean. Chapter 7. Security deposit refund. Getting your money back one jig's dinner at a time. The security deposit, that magical sum of money you hand over at the beginning of your tenancy, hoping against hope that you'll see it again someday. Well, good news, folks. In Newfoundland and Labrador, you have the right to get your security deposit back, provided you've held up your end of the bargain. This means leaving the rental unit in the same condition as you found it, normal wear and tear excluded, of course. Think of it like borrowing your nan's good china. You wouldn't return it chipped and stained, would you? So before you move out, give your apartment a good clean, patch up any holes you might have accidentally made, and resist the urge to write "I lived here" on the wall in permanent marker. Chapter 8. Disputing eviction or rent increase. Because sometimes you need to fight the man. Let's be honest, nobody wants to end up in a legal battle with their landlord. It's messy, it's stressful, and it usually involves a lot of paperwork. But sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. If you believe you're being unfairly evicted, or your landlord is trying to slap you with an unreasonable rent increase, you have the right to dispute it. That's where the Residential Tenancies Board comes in, like a referee in a particularly heated game of hockey. They're there to ensure everyone is playing by the rules and to help resolve disputes between landlords and tenants. So if you find yourself at odds with your landlord, don't be afraid to reach out to the board for help. Chapter 9. Protection against discrimination. Because everyone deserves a place to call home. In the year 2023, it should go without saying that discrimination of any kind is unacceptable. And thankfully, when it comes to renting in Newfoundland and Labrador, the law is on your side. Landlords are prohibited from discriminating against potential tenants based on race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, disability, or any other protected characteristic. Basically, everyone deserves a fair shot at finding a place to live, regardless of who they are, what they believe, or who they love. So if you believe you've been discriminated against by a landlord, don't hesitate to take action. Remember, you have rights and you deserve to be treated with respect. Chapter 10. Notice before termination of tenancy. It's called common courtesy. Look it up. Nobody likes a surprise eviction, especially if you've already unpacked your entire record collection. That's why, in Newfoundland and Labrador, landlords are required to give you proper notice before they can kick you to the curb. This applies whether they're selling the property, renovating, or just decided they don't like the way you arrange your furniture. And the same goes for you, dear renter. If you're planning on moving out, you can't just disappear into the night like a ghost in an old St. John's house. You need to give your landlord proper notice, usually around 30 days, to give them time to find a new tenant. Chapter 11. Remaining in the property if it's sold, new owner, same rules. So you're happily ensconced in your rental unit, sipping your morning tea and enjoying the view when suddenly you get the news the building has been sold. Now, before you panic and start packing your bags, take a deep breath. Just because the ownership is changing hands, it doesn't necessarily mean you're being thrown out on the street. In Newfoundland and Labrador, the new owner is legally obligated to honour your existing lease agreement. That means they can't just kick you out on a whim. They have to wait until your lease expires, unless there are specific circumstances outlined in your lease agreement that allow for an earlier termination. Chapter 12. Protection from retaliation. Because revenge is a dish best served, never actually. Last but not least, let's talk about retaliation. Now, we all know landlords are just regular people trying to make a living, but some of them can be a bit touchy. And by touchy, I mean they might try to get back at you for exercising your rights as a tenant. But here's the thing, they can't. In Newfoundland and Labrador, landlords are prohibited from retaliating against tenants who report maintenance issues, request repairs, or file complaints with the Residential Tenancies Board. Basically, just because you stand up for your rights doesn't mean your landlord can evict you, raise your rent, or start leaving passive-aggressive notes on your door. Outro. Stay informed, stay safe, and don't let your landlord walk all over you. So, there you have it, folks. A crash course in Newfoundland and Labrador tenant rights. We've covered everything from lease agreements to security deposit refunds, and hopefully you've learned a thing or two about how to navigate the sometimes treacherous waters of renting in this province. Remember, knowing your rights is crucial to ensuring you have a safe, habitable, and, dare I say, enjoyable renting experience. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself, ask questions, and if all else fails, channel your inner Newfoundlander and give them a piece of your mind. In a polite and respectful manner, of course. After all, this is still Canada, eh? So go forth, dear renters, armed with the knowledge and power to fight for your rights. And remember, if you ever find yourself in a sticky situation, don't hesitate to contact the Residential Tenancies Board. They're there to help.